I recently volunteered for the easiest, smoothest Santa and pet photo sessions for a fundraiser for the shelter that I've ever done, and I'd like to share that with you today. So Monique here of Silver Paw Studio and founder of ProPetPhotog, and I love volunteering at my local shelter, as do you, probably you. And we often know their skill set of taking pictures of the adoptable pets for their profile. But have you ever been asked to do some kind of like a mini session fundraiser? Where do you even start? Well, this was the smoothest one ever. I've done a few of these, so I'm just going to tell you how this one went, and maybe it could help with your next themed fundraiser. So, what we did was the shelter actually reached out to me because I do so much volunteering for them and said, hey, we've got this set up. This is the 3rd year doing this. Just thought we'd reach out to you. I said, oh yeah, that'd be so great. Since I can't really go out there as often as I used to, I was happy to do these. I wasn't planning on doing any kind of Christmas minis in my session, so this was perfect. So they set up scheduling everyone, the fun set, and the Santa, and even the helpers. So all I had to do was show up with my camera equipment. So camera and lights, which we'll talk about gear in just a second. And so the way that they set it up was they had an event, a Facebook event, and people can sign up for 10-minute sessions. And they haven't found a good way to integrate payment and scheduling like a lot of us run into. And so they just let people schedule their session and then pay for it when they got there. And then they just get a digital image. And that worked out better than I thought. And I'll tell you why in a second. And so they had that figured out. I didn't have to schedule anything. Great. And then the Santa set was put together by one of the veterinarians from the shelter. She always wants to get Santa pictures of her dogs, so she got her husband to volunteer the last few years to wear a Santa suit this one day a year and build this set. So she brought in the set, and she had kind of her helper costume on too, holiday themed, and she had a very simple backdrop that I'm sure she just got on Amazon. They have a wingback chair from their home, a table, a little side table from their home, and just their regular Christmas decorations. So we scattered them around the set thinking about where the dogs and cats would be able to sit or interact with Santa. Oh, and she had some fuzzy carpets for the floor too, because a lot of times they're just sitting on the floor. So consider that. So that part was super easy too. We already had an experienced Santa, and the veterinarian is their trainer and behaviorist, so she handled a lot of the animals. And then the one other person that they had was a new volunteer that would help check everybody in, because how they had it running was that people would pull up in the parking lot at their time. That volunteer would go out to check them in and say whether the coast was clear, they can come in. It was a very small space. And so they waited in the car till she came out with the clipboard, yes, this is you, and escorted them in. At that point, the veterinarian, the Santa helper, grabbed the pets and set them with Santa, and I took the pictures, and then the people went over and paid the shelter. And what was nice was that he just said, would you like to donate more? I know you pay, this is so much for this, but would you like to donate even more? And everybody did. So that was a nice way to do that. The downside to that system is there were 2 no-shows. So people who didn't pay, but the extra donations kind of covered that. So that worked out actually okay. And then on their way out, the helper that brought everybody in also showed them my QR code. So I had a little picture frame with a QR code that simply led them to a jot form that had their name and their email. And if they signed up for that, that group of people will get a special email from me with the gallery of all these images, and they can download theirs. That is the agreement I had with the shelter. This wasn't a moneymaker for me at all, but what I'm going to do is offer them extra prints. So in my Pixie Set gallery, they'll be able to download them, and then if they want to buy a variety of prints, they certainly can. And I let the shelter know I will probably just donate any extra funds that I get from that. So that was kind of the flow and the system. Now, as far as gear, I really wasn't sure exactly where we were going to set up, but it was a Sunday, so everything was closed down. This is their regular clinic area, and the lobby was just big enough to set all this up in. So we have the backdrop and the rugs and the chair and the decorations and place for Santa. And I only had a few feet. So at first I tried my 17 to 35, I think it is, lens, and actually it was too wide. I was shocked. So I put my beloved 24 to 70 on and was able to photograph the whole time with that lens. And then for lights, I used my two Flashpoint Explorer 600s, and I did bring my bounce back umbrellas that you see in my studio a lot, but I ended up not using them because the room was small enough and low enough, and it was white ceilings, that I just turned the heads around with the reflectors that come with them and bounced those off the corner of the ceiling and wall back onto the subject. And it worked. My only fear was that the batteries would run out, because you do have to have your lights a little higher power to get them to go to the corner and back to the set. But it was fine. They lasted the whole time. I did charge them when I got back to the studio, but they weren't even half depleted, not even close. So that's ended up how I ended up lighting it, and that's the equipment I used, my Sony A1 with the 2470, and the two Flashpoint Explorer 600s bounced off the ceilings, controlled with the R2 controller on the top of the camera, and it went super easy. The clients brought their own little treats if they wanted them, but the sessions were so quick, we didn't really need that. We had a variety of noisemakers, of course. I have my Sounds app, my cat magic wand, and squeaky toy, and then some of the kitties responded to kind of jingling metal bucket thing we had. That actually worked. Some cats don't like it, but we tried it for some kitties. So that worked out pretty well. And honestly, it was so streamlined that we sat around most of the time. So people would get there in their 10-minute slot. We'd take maybe 5 minutes to take the pictures, do the payment, and they can go out. And so there was a lot of times we were just there. But I would never schedule these closer than 10 minutes. I wouldn't do 5 minutes, because what'll happen is some people will run late and some people will run early, or dogs will take a little bit more time. So 10 minutes was a sweet spot for us as a crew who really had it dialed in. We knew what to do. I knew how to set up everything. We had a great staff, but I would suggest, if you're not sure, do 15 minutes, and then you can have a little bit more time. It felt a little rushed when the dogs were first there, but I think we probably could have done another half as many photo sessions just because we were so streamlined. So something to kind of think about. What's your workflow? How comfortable are you with your equipment? How many helpers do you have? We had so many helpers, I felt super spoiled. And delivery is going to be super easy. I'll just do a basic edit and put them in a gallery and send all those people an email, which ended up being about 15. So not too bad. And then they agreed to stay on my email list. And so they can drop off of it any time, of course. But, now they're on my email list. And it was just a fun time. It was a nice way to volunteer, do something fun, hang out with dogs and cats and all the staff that I know, and just a nice end of the weekend. So that's kind of how my easiest Santa picture fundraiser ever went the other day. Really streamlined. If you're considering doing something like this, hopefully this was helpful. If you have questions though, type it in the comments below. And if you liked this video, you'll probably like this video next. And as always, I wish you many woofs, purrs, and TREATSs.